I'm Patrick with Just Got Played. I want to thank you very much for watching this how to play video for Zoned Out, a 2 to 4 player game by Gray Fox where we all play city planners. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to get right into the components. You get 64 of these city cards, 1 downtown area city card, 18 objective cards. You get 2 of these deed tokens per player, so that's a total of 8. You have 4 of these city planner meeples, very cute acrylic looking construction worker guys. You have 45 of these building structures per player, so for a total of 180. You have 20 redraw tokens. You have 90 victory point tokens, and I do want to point out that these aren't supposed to represent a limited supply. So if you need more redraw tokens, you just have to find something suitable. By that I mean victory tokens, redraw tokens, and deed tokens all are supposed to have an unlimited supply. So that's it. That's your complete component list for the game. Now let's get right into setup. First thing you do is draw 4 of these city cards and place them out onto the board. Now, when you place them out for the first time during setup, these parking lots all go towards the inside center. And the reason for that is because you're going to take this downtown city card and place it over top of those parking lots. And downtown's where you're going to be putting your skyscrapers later. Now, the amount of building structure tokens will depend on the amount of players. In a 2-player game, you have 45. In a 3-player game, you have 40. And in a 4-player game, you have 35. So keep that in mind when you do pick out your player pieces. The next thing you're going to do is draw out these objective cards, and these are the zoned out bonus cards. You draw 6 of those. And then you can put the rest in the box, actually. And you draw 2 to each player in a 2-player game. In a 3 or 4-player game, only 1 per player. And those are face down, but the other 2 go up as public information onto the board, and that's going to give you information of how to score extra points. For example, I'll score 1 victory point for each light commercial block that you develop. I'll explain what that is in a second. But you get extra victory points at the end of the game for what you have on the board. Now these will also score off of at the end of the game, but they're private information. Although every player will score off of them, you're going to be privy to the knowledge. So you've got some knowledge that nobody else has in the game. Be conservative with that knowledge. Obviously, the more that you're going to use it, the more other players can pick up on it, right? So they're going to say, he's building a lot of light commercial. Maybe he's got a private card that says light commercial, and they do score off that at the end of the game. Next, you're going to deal out some city cards to each player. Each player gets 3, except for the starting player. They only get 2. So that's it. That's the complete setup for the game. I do want to get into a little bit about what these city cards look like. So each of the city cards will have a pink or a yellow or a blue or variations of those, more than 1 pink, more than 1 yellow, more than 1 blue on them. The pink are residential, the yellow are commercial, and the blue are industrial. They're different types of zoned areas that you would have. And they also have a different number of buildings in that little teeny picture for each one. So if you have 1 building in it, it's low density, 2 is medium density, and 3 is high density. That's also going to become very important when you're placing your building structures later on in the game. Obviously, you'll put 1 down for every 1 in the picture. So light, you do 1, medium, you do 2, and obviously heavy, you do 3. You're going to generate zones built off of those different areas. Now, there are also libraries, stadiums, and train depots. And those are also residential, commercial, and industrial in like order. Those have a wild density. So you place your building structures on top of those for whatever you need at that moment. Probably for a revealed card or for a private information card. Like I said, keep in mind, if you do that, people are going to be like, why is he building 3 structures on that stadium when he doesn't necessarily need it? So those are important things to keep in mind during the course of the game. There are also parks, parking lots, abandoned buildings, and what's the last one? Museums. So parks and museums will give you a bonus if they're contiguous with your zones when you zone them out, and parking lots and abandoned buildings are negative points if they're contiguous with the buildings you build out. So that goes over very quickly what the city cards are exactly. Next, let's see what a turn consists of. Now the first player, the first turn, doesn't get a full turn, which would normally consist of drawing a redraw token if you want. Again, be careful with these. The more redraw tokens you draw, the more cards that you can turn back in and redraw from. That's great if you want to get a different variety of cards that are in your hand. The bad part is those redraw tokens at the end of the game are also worth negative points, and those negative points are cumulative. So the first one may be only negative 1 point, but the next one's like negative 3. They go up not exponentially, but they go up in a higher order for sure. The next thing you do after drawing a redraw token is you play a card. Now, when you play a card, this is also important. You can only cover up a portion of another zone. So I can cover up these 2 with these 2, but I can't cover up an entire card. You also can't play this over top of another city planner. That just wouldn't be polite. Or in a zone that he's currently working on. So if there's some contiguous buildings of residential and he's on a residential zone, you can't lay this over top of one of the contiguous buildings that are connected to his zone. And I'll go into that a little more in the first round of playthrough. Next, you'll move your little guy onto the zone that onto the city card that you just played. You can play it onto any of the zones, except when you play your guy, you can't play him onto parks, parking lots, abandoned buildings, or museums. They have to go onto residential, industrial, or commercial properties. Then you place your meeple onto the board. When you leave a zone, you develop the zone that you just left. So you kind of get all your victory points for all those connecting pieces, and you put down your building structures onto those connecting areas. And I'll show you how that works in the turn play as well. And then the last thing you do is you draw a card into your hand. Now the game ends when you have no more city cards to draw, or one of the players is completely out of building structures. So that's when the game ends and you total up your end game scoring points as well. So you have your points that you scored during the course of the game, and you have your points scored during the end game as well. So the first player, the first turn, doesn't get to play a card. So they have the ability to do redraw tokens if they want. Shame on them if they do. The next thing they can do is place their token onto the board someplace. That's it. That's all that first player can do for their first turn. The second player has a more realistic or more accurate first turn. They will draw any redraw tokens that they want, if they want them. Then they'll play a card. And again, remember about the rules for playing a card. I can't lay it on top of my opponent's meeple. So I am going to place this guy right here. And once you place a city card, you have to move your meeple onto the city card you just played. I'm going to place it right there because it's got 2 contiguous commercial zones. Maybe I'll be able to build off that later and wipe out that parking lot that's next to it, so I can have that not contiguous. The next thing I'll do would be normally to develop the zone. So you can't on the first turn develop the zone because you moved him from off the board onto the board. So you're not going to normally you would develop a zone if you leave it. You may not leave it, and I'll show you that in a second as well. Last thing you do, draw your hand back up to 3. All right, now it's the first player's turn again. So it's my little pink guy over here. I'm going to take a look at what lands I want to drop. I'm not going to draw any redraw tokens, but I would like to make this move an informative one for you. So I will place this city card here, move my city planner onto that spot, and then I have to develop that spot that I just left. It is a medium density, so 2 structures go onto it, area of the board. I have developed that one area. I collect victory points for that area. There's a chart that tells you what to do. I developed one area, so I get 1 victory point, and it has a contiguous park next to it, so I get 2 victory points for that. So I got 2 victory points for that turn, and I moved my character onto the new board. Now, you also, every time you develop an area, you take one of your building structures and drop it on the downtown area, the skyscraper board, if you will, that designates that particular area. So if my opponent plays one later on in this area, it's going to stack on top of that. So at the end of the game, you count the amount of floors in your skyscraper area as well. So every time you develop an area, you drop one of your building structure points or tokens into the downtown area. All right, so I've developed, I have taken my points. I'm going to draw another city card to bring my hand up to 3, and it is the next player's turn. So let's take a look, and I'll make an example. So I will place this city card down here next to the structures that my opponent has already built. I have to move my piece. Now, he's no longer developing this because that player is off of that area. So that's actually closed out. So I'm going to move my token over here and then place my city tokens, or my structure tokens, onto the board where I just left. And then take my victory points for that zoned area. So I have 2 zones, so I'm going to take the appropriate amount of victory points for that. I have a parking lot, which is -1, that's contiguous with my area. I have a park, which is +1, which is contiguous with that area. And I have another park. So these 2 cancel out. I have an additional park, so I gain 1 more victory point. Then I draw my hand back up to 4. What did I forget to do? Place the structure right there on the downtown area. You get to place 1 structure when you develop 1 zone, right onto the downtown area where I'm at. So this will continue. You'll build out property and zone certain areas during the course of the game, collecting points, and then finally you'll move on to end game scoring. Once somebody's out of building structures, or all of us are out of city cards. The first thing you're going to do is score your public objective cards. So the public objectives are the ones that are revealed to everyone. For example, like I mentioned before, score 1 victory point for each light commercial block that you have developed. I don't have that on this actual demonstration, but if I did have one, a light commercial would have been right here, I would get an extra victory point for that at the end of the game. After you're done scoring all these for both players, then each player will reveal their private objectives. And I'd say private objectives just because it was private information, not because it scores privately. So everyone scores off these cards like I mentioned before, but now they're revealed, and then you score those appropriately. The next thing you're going to do, score those redraw tokens. So if you've taken some redraw tokens, consult the chart in the book, and it's going to tell you exactly how many points you lost because of redraws. And then last but not least, you score the skyscrapers. The person with the most floors scores 7. The second most skyscraper floors scores 5, and the third most scores 3. And in a 2-player game, I'm pretty sure that the first player scores 5, the highest with the most floors scores 5, and the second most floors scores 3. That's it. That's zoned out all in a tiny, wrapped up little package for you. So thank you very much for watching Just Got Played. Thank you very much for watching this particular how to play video. And if you have any questions or comments, please put them below.